front seat of your church.
They seem to forget that before I was a civil rights leader, I answered a call which left the Spirit of the Lord upon me and anointed me to preach the gospel. During the early days of my ministry, I read the Apostle Paul saying, "Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind." And I decided then that I was going to tell the truth as God revealed it to me. I don't know about you. I ain't going to study war no more. Oh, men of creed.
Diamonds are very important. Gold is very important. All these minerals are very important. We call them precious minerals. But they are all forms of the soil. But that part of this mineral that is on top, like it is the skin of the earth, that is the most precious of the common.
Our wealth is imaginary. It comes from the soil.
If we don't take care of the soil, which is just the first 5 centimeters layer of life that is on the earth, our future is totally condemned.
Baby, does the bullet look like an arrow? When it's in the air, basically. Long and narrow with tail fin? Basically. Full circle. It's an arrow made out of uranium. For piercing tanks. I want to see this thing get fired. Let's go make it go boom.
The XM360 fires its shells at 4,200 feet per second.
Whoa.
That is what a big gun does.
The gun is aimed towards a mound of dirt called a catch box.
This is a big pile of sand where the projectile is going to impact and just instantly be buried. They clean it out about every 2-3 years. So right now it's just loaded with old spent projectiles.
In form and function, the XM360 is no different from the guns we've seen, except for one thing. No human needs to pull the trigger.
Back in the old days, I would have been in this tank personally firing this gun. But as we've seen, the guns of the future are so complicated they hardly even need people. They just need a guy with a laptop. Actually, that's kind of more my thing.
Over the centuries, every new advancement in human...
Here, look at that Mount Pinatubo's fiasco, you jerks, at Clark Air Force Base. That's no longer there.
It is an incredible and deadly coincidence of natural events. Racing across the South China Sea, Typhoon Yunya reaches Pinatubo just as the volcano enters its most cataclysmic phase. It is a 1-2 killer punch, the worst possible combination of calamities.
Unbelievable. It's just simply unimaginable that these two things can happen at the same time. So you're in the middle of a battle.
Beneath Krakatoa, in the middle of the Sunda Straits, the subduction zone contains a kink. This twists and rips the Earth's crust and provides even more material to fuel Krakatoa's hungry magma chamber.
Where you have those kinks, two things could happen. Firstly, there might be a greater chance of earthquakes because the kink itself actually starts to tear or rip. And secondly, where the kink is might generate more melting, and it's the melting that takes place in the mantle that ultimately leads to the lavas that erupted from the volcanoes at the surface.
searing blast of gas and pulverized rock shot out of the mountain.
A train wreck. The essence of a well-ordered system reduced to chaos. The very phrase train wreck has come to mean any out-of-control disaster. And although rail travel is among the very safest ways to get around, when a passenger train traveling at high speed does crash, whether through derailment or collision, scores, even hundreds of passengers can die. In 1964, the world was introduced to high-speed rail with Japan's Shinkansen, or bullet train. The trains ran at a top speed of 133 miles per hour.
The Hindenburg accident basically finished the airship industry for Germany and the world, and that the German engineers were committed that this accident was not going to be a Hindenburg and prevent high-speed rail from being successful in Germany.
And indeed, the Aschette disaster did not dampen the German people's fondness for the ICE and high-speed rail. So how do we avoid what might be called the Hindenburg syndrome and actually benefit from an engineering disaster? It requires a careful analysis of what went wrong, as well as a bold, forward-looking redesign. And while lost human lives can never be recovered, the opportunity to learn and improve remains. Whether it's finishing the job or reinventing the wheel, engineers strive to perfect their designs and to find new and better ways to prevent disaster.
Didn't have to look far to find an example that convinced them the Pentagon was willing to lie to sick veterans. During the Vietnam War, the U.S. sprayed millions of gallons of a chemical defoliant called Agent Orange.
It took, 20, 30 years for the government to say, oh yeah, you were exposed to Agent Orange. And I'm sitting here going, what are they going to do?
As he crossed the 35-yard line from Rashawn King, a 2-yard gain.
Well, Navy has its Virginia-class submarine on the field, and Army has a secret weapon of its own. But the submarine force is ready to adjust. They're taking off the bow and putting on a drilling leg. And what's this box? And what's the music? It looks like the old guys play to me.
Sprayed millions of gallons of a chemical defoliant called Agent Orange.
It took, 20, 30 years for the government to say, oh yeah, you were exposed to Agent Orange. And I'm sitting here going, what are they going to do with us? Wait 20 or 30 years down the line when most of us are dead and say, oh yeah, I think you were exposed to something.
For the 100,000 Gulf War vets exposed changing with the arrival of new equipment and software. According to advocates, almost everyone in the Gulf was exposed to DU. And the effect of radioactivity, according to Dr. Asef Darakovich, is even more damaging to the soldiers' long-term health.
I got it. Dance of the Bill Rikers, right?